works for me.
It has started.
Great. Thank you everyone for coming to this, which is the first of a series of webinars that the City of Flagstaff and Coconino County will be hosting together to bring the community together and discuss the Flagstaff Regional Plan. The current regional plan was adopted in 2014, and it is time to begin reimagining it and updating it. So today I am Sarah Dector. I am the Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Manager for the City of Flagstaff, and my counterpart at Coconino County is also here today. Will you introduce yourself, Melissa?
Hi, everybody. I know some of you. I'm Melissa Shaw with Coconino County, the Long Range Planner in Community Development, and am working with Sarah on initiating the update to our shared regional plan.
Great, thank you. So these regional snapshots are going to be a series of webinars that we will be having. I'm calling it most Mondays at noon because there's a couple holidays in there, and we're not going to make anybody sit at a lunchtime webinar on a holiday. So they will consistently be posted at flagstaff.az.gov/regional plan 2045. And their format will always be a 15-minute presentation and 15 minutes of Q&A. I even have a timer going to make sure I don't go over 15 minutes in sharing the information we have. We have over 30 snapshot topics for the next 5 months. So we hope you'll join us for any of them that interest you. And if you miss any of them and want to follow up, every one of them will be posted to the City of Flagstaff's YouTube channel. So the Flagstaff Regional Plan is part of a hierarchy of planning documents that's used at both the city and the county for a couple of things. One, there's an overall policy purpose of having a united vision for the community. There is also a need to have a document that can be used in making discretionary land use decisions, which are done a little differently at the city and county, but we try and use that shared vision. It also is a source for some key analyses, such as our transportation planning and our ability to analyze our water supply needs and our ability to provide water for the community throughout the region. So under the regional plan, Melissa, myself, our counterparts throughout the city create other documents called specific or area plans. Some of the specific plans may also be master utilities plans or things that kind of don't quite fit the triangle perfectly, but help us imagine that bigger vision at a mid scale. And then finally, we have our capital improvements planning, zoning code, housing design standards or programs, engineering standards, and the budget process that actually implement all of this, as well as other policies that are sort of circulating around this part of our long range planning. So the regional plan is required by state law. It's not required to be a regional plan. What's required is that the city has a general plan and the county has a comprehensive plan. Flagstaff, because we work so closely with Coconino County and such a large percentage of the Coconino County population falls within the Flagstaff regional area, which includes Doney Park and Belmont and Fort Valley and Kachina and Mount Ayr, we decide to do this planning effort together so that we have a unified vision for this part of the community. So this document will serve as the general plan for the city, and therefore it must be ratified by City of Flagstaff voters every 10 years, which is the impetus for the timing of this update. As I said, we use it for land use decision policymaking. Flagstaff has Arizona Department of Water Resources 100-year water supply designation voluntarily that we also base on our regional planning efforts. And we use it for transportation planning with MetroPlan, which is our metropolitan planning organization. The county, on the other hand, uses this as an amendment to their comprehensive plan. The Coconino County Comprehensive Plan is very policy-based and it does not have many maps. And so the maps that are in the regional plan serve as part of the comprehensive plan in Coconino County. The process for adopting this plan is a little different in Coconino County because it goes to the Board of Supervisors as a major plan amendment, not to the voters. So how has this plan evolved? We started this effort of doing this document together in the late 1990s. 1997 was Vision 2020. That was the first time we had this joint planning effort, and we adopted that regional land use and transportation plan in 2001. And it was really at that point in time a very map-based effort. And we looked at the map first, and really the rest of the plan had some interesting things to say, but it wasn't used very often beyond looking at that land use map. So when we revised it in the late 2010, 2009, that era, we asked the public what they wanted the plan to do when we revised it. And they wanted it to hold us accountable, both anyone who works for government and our elected officials, for publicly derived policies, outcomes, and goals, to guide the physical and economic development of the region, to establish priorities for public action, to provide direction so that the private sector could make complementary decisions, and to encourage predictable decision-making. And so this was our objectives in revising the last regional plan, which is the one that Melissa and I use every day today to assist people when they have questions about long-term goals for the community. This document was more goals and policy-based and had a generalized land use map that clearly identified our activity centers, and was based on a very robust scenario planning effort that really used our geodesign planning tools of ArcGIS and modeling to try and see how we could get everything to work together. It was integrated both with the City of Flagstaff's water monitoring and the regional transportation modeling. And it resulted in a map that looks like this. This is our generalized map, which we call the future growth illustrations. What you see here is the regional area. So this big box is what we call the metro plan boundary, and it's also the regional plan boundary. And you see there's some dots with circles on them. So those dots and circles are what we call the activity centers. And then the colors on the map are what we call the area types. And so these two tools are how Melissa, I, and other planners and policymakers look at the region and talk about what should be there in the future. And we answer questions from realtors and property owners and developers and our partner agencies like Department of Defense in Camp Navajo and the Naval Observatory. And we all work together to understand and implement this map. So when we update the regional plan, this will be one of the things we're ultimately trying to get to, is what does the next iteration of this map look like and how does it serve the community? There's a lot of ingredients to get from the place we are now to the next iteration of this document. We have, in between our last planning effort and this one, adopted several specific and area plans for La Plaza Vieja, Belmont, the South Side. Donny Park is in the process of developing an area plan right now. We've done updates to our utilities master planning. There's a broadband plan for Coconino County. And then the tools we use to do this level of planning have become incredibly more sophisticated in terms of the forecasting we can do and the data analysis. There's also been change in the last 10 years. Imagine that after a pandemic in our vision as a community and values. And so we have to get into that again and have those discussions with the community and recalibrate. We also have intergovernmental coordination. There's now a joint land use study for Camp Navajo and for the Naval Observatory that we will also need to take into account as we're working to revise this regional plan. And so for Melissa and I in getting this started, what that means is we have a lot of data. We have over 180 data metrics between county data and city data and metro plan data and transit data and history and things we're able to get from our partnerships with NAU and the professors there. There is so much to look at. So that's what we're hoping this webinar series will let us start to do, is get a state of conditions and trends in many of these topic areas, probably not all. That'd be really exhaustive. But to look as much as we can within the plan area with the community as a basis for thinking about what do we know and what's important. Based on this, we will eventually start working on scenario planning. Scenario planning is an effort of getting us to think futuristically. So from this platform of where we are today, we're going to look forward and say, what if there is no fossil fuel consumption by vehicles in 2050? What if there is catastrophic wildland fires on a regular basis, far beyond what we've seen currently? And also some good scenarios. What if we have the ability to produce enough housing that we can make Flagstaff more affordable? We'll have to look at all different scenarios like that and do some testing of how those things might look and what kind of policies could drive us in those directions. So that is a big effort, and it involves a lot of little blocks. And so each of these snapshots will show you kind of a piece of this puzzle so that we can all think about it together. So this is one step in our public engagement process. There are many steps in involving 100,000 people in a topic as broad as the future of the region. It's a big topic. And so plan development is going to involve both some collaboration with the community and also assistance from the community in helping us get organized and get a shared understanding of how to move forward. So we've broken this process into several phases. Phase one is the one we're in now. This is literally day one. So nothing is decided. We haven't written a word. We are not trying to get ahead of where we are in terms of dreaming big. But we're asking people, instead of asking them to dream big right away, we're going to ask you and everyone who participates in this process to get curious. What do we know? What do we understand? What do we want to understand? And for that purpose, we are going to ask for some assistance on this webinar and regional snapshot process, as well as we're going to be working hopefully with some local artists to think about how we get people to create something that's visual and visionary and inspirational to help us move forward. The next phases of the process, the one where we'll actually get to like scenario planning, which I'm teeing up pretty strongly in this first webinar, but it's important, is going to be phase two, where we talk about what's possible and what's our vision. Then we get into the very detailed planning stuff of writing a plan, making it work within the laws and regulations of the state of Arizona, and getting that plan adopted. So these webinars are going to be held every Monday at noon, or not every Monday, most Mondays, I have to remind myself to say that. Our next one will be October 4th, and that one is going to be about land basics. So basically zoning 101. What is zoning? Why do we do that? And that's important because when a property owner requests to rezone, one of the findings is, does it comply with your general plan or your comprehensive plan? So this document will help determine what requests from property owners meet that finding and which ones don't. And so that's a really fundamental piece that we want everyone to have some understanding of. It'll be really hard to get through in 15 minutes, but it'll also be something we're discussing all along the way. In collaboration with Indigenous Peoples Day on October 11th, which is going to be a virtual event hosted by the City of Flagstaff, we will also have another one of these webinars at noon on the importance of history and culture. October 18th, we will talk about early ed, K through 12, and higher ed in our community. And then on October 25th, the Metro Plan group, which is working on an update to Metro Plan's 5-year plan, which is what determines what kind of projects can have federal funding for transportation in our region. They're going to help us have a real snapshot level look at the Flagstaff's regional economy. And all of these, again, you can register at flagstaff.az.gov, Regional Plan 2045. So I said there to be an ask at the end of this webinar, and there is. We are actually looking for people to be expert reviewers on these snapshots. Not only will there be this 15-minute presentation, 15-minute Q&A, we are also preparing 3 to 5 page papers that summarize many of these topics to create a library on the website of where we are and really foundational information about what it means. So if you have expertise in any of the areas that we start posting to the website, please feel free to come and email Melissa or I, and we would love to have you as an expert reviewer. Another piece of the puzzle is you are going to see in the community and maybe even get an invitation to take a phone survey for the regional transportation plan, the Mountain Line 5-year transit plan, which is called Flagstaff in Motion, and the regional plan. All of these efforts have different surveys going on in the next 6 months. We are all using these surveys for shared planning. So if you answer the regional transportation plan, that information is going to come back to Coconino County and the city. Same if you answer a survey for the transit plan, and all of them will have slightly different questions and slightly different information you're helping to provide. So we encourage you, if you get an invitation for any of these efforts, to please take that survey and make sure we get the best information about our community's attitudes, values, and priorities. You can also, if you run an organization in our community, invite Melissa or I to come talk to any community organization, club, or business, either virtually or in person as we are able. And that is it for me. So we're still recording, and Melissa, I know, is monitoring the chat for questions. So if you have a question, please put a Q in the chat or go ahead and raise your hand with the reactions, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have about this effort or the regional plan in general.
And Sarah, this is Melissa. Just while people are thinking about their questions, I wanted to just mention one thing about the county's comprehensive plan. And that plan, as most of you probably know, does have maps. What it does not have, which is a major difference between the regional plan and the county's comprehensive plan, is it doesn't have a future land use map. So that map that shows the vision for the future of the region is something that the county does use when we are evaluating projects that require discretionary decisions. So projects that are in the county within that region, we look at basically 3 different documents. We look at the county's comprehensive plan. If there's an area plan, we look at that, as well as our the regional plan. So just to clarify that. Oh, and there I am. Sorry. And so if any questions, or, if you all just want to jump in, there are a few of us, we won't talk over each other. I think we can have an informal conversation. Or you did such a good job, Sarah. Nobody has any questions. That was great. I always learn something. Sarah's a really dynamite presenter. So I always enjoy listening to her, even though we're working together on this.
Well, I will add that if you are not comfortable raising your hand and asking your question today, as I said, this is day 1. So any question that comes to mind, either through conversation with your neighbor or friend, or on further thought by when you're brushing your teeth or washing your hair, I always think people have really fascinating thoughts at that time of the day. Feel free to always email those to us as well, and we're glad to respond.
And there's Greg has his hand up.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. You guys mentioned the J-Luce, and just wanted you to be aware, it's not a question, but more of a statement, but there is a Sentinel landscape designation conversation happening in the area with the observatory and the Camp Navajo. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Absolutely. It's important too to know that a lot of other federal agencies use our general plan or our regional plan in this region as well. So when the Forest Service or the National Park Service are doing their land management planning, they actually are required by federal law to look at our plan as well. So this becomes an important touchstone, not just for private land, though that's mostly what it is applicable to, and to state lands. But also to the federal lands in our region, because they use it as a basis for which to understand how our community might change or grow in the future.
Greg, for other listeners, did you want to explain that a little bit more?
Sure. So the Sentinel landscape is a designation under USDA that would apply to areas, around within the joint land use study. And the conversations are preliminary with the installations, but just wanted to, make sure that you all were aware of that. And, there's a lot of moving pieces in terms of that designation, and it would help with some, possibly with forest restoration, but it all has to be done in alignment with the military missions and protecting those missions. But thank you, Sarah, for talking about the intersection of federal land management and local planning. It's very interesting.
That'll actually be another topic too for our next webinar. When we do land basics, we will kind of give an overview of land ownership in the region. So I'll give a teaser for that too. So that's it helped me a little in that way too, Greg. We can say the next one, we'll go over that as well, because we have a very unique land makeup in Coconino County, and especially in the regional planning area. Well, if there are no more questions, I will stop recording.